Hi, Cami.
Hello, Pat. How's it going?
Good. Well, we record on Fridays, Friday mornings here. Well, it's morning for me. It's still morning for you where you're at and stuff. And
Mhm.
the sun is shining. It's like the bluest sky up here in Minnesota. And it just feels like this feels like a really good Friday.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. It's rainy here. It's raining. It's like 56 degrees today, which is wild for January. So Kentucky weather is just very intense with just
Well, especially
extremes.
after that big snowstorm that like highly unusual. And
Yeah,
I
it's
know
been
I was
weird.
talking to someone else in Oklahoma and she's like, it shut everything down, because we have no equipment to deal with it. And
Right.
but maybe that's just a good way for spirit telling us to just like time to go within and
Yup,
not be
just go
so
with the
busy.
flow.
Yeah, not be
Hmm.
so busy. Um, this has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about today, but when we talk about go with the flow, was trained by Master Chunyi Lin, who is a Grand Master of Qigong, right? And he happens to live in Minnesota, but when he does his big events and he's doing training or these really cool events that he puts on, he has a thing, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. And just kind of because that's what we need to do is just like go with the flow, go with the flow. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So today I wanted to share with you, and then I want to hear from you, like how you helped people find their people, their tribe when they're grieving. We in the Confident Grief Coach program, I use the term tribe just because it resonates for me and it seems to resonate for a lot of other people as far as that community of people. But I wanted to share what's kind of been going on the last few weeks with someone that I know that I thought was a very unique and supportive way that she actually stepped up to help herself while her husband was dying. So, this woman is someone that worked in an office. I was a regional manager for a lot of offices when I was in corporate America. And so she is in one of the offices. And so we got to know each other because I would probably go to that office at least once a month, if not more. And then after I left the organization, it's been 9 years now since I haven't worked there. And I don't know, then the organization did a lot of shifting and shaping. And I don't know how long it's been since she actually worked, but we stayed connected through Facebook. It was just a nice way, like, oh, how are you doing? But it was very superficial, right? It's like, nice to hear from you or good for you. Well, her husband was diagnosed with lung cancer. Probably within the last year. I don't think it's been all that long. I think it feels like a fairly rapid onset, that probably in the last 6 to 8 months. And so a lot of challenges with that, with his treatment and financially. And they lived in a place that is not highly populated, so they'd have to go down and travel, like for the treatments and the care and the evaluations and have to stay at people's houses, like her relatives' houses and stuff like that. It was a very complicated and, scary time because you got all this that you have to deal with. And about maybe a month ago or so, you could see that, the prognosis was getting poorer and poorer. And she reached out and created a private Facebook page and she called it her vent page. So titled it her name, vent page. And she only invited like a handful of us to be part of that page. So it was a private group. And it was so amazing because she said, I just need a place that's not public, that isn't my friends and family, where I can just like unload and feel supported. So if you are one of those people that feel like, you want to be a part of this, there's only a few of you, accept it. And so I did. And she goes, I knew you were going to accept it, Pat. I just knew that. And over the last several weeks, when, there was nothing more to be done, and, they're working on hospice transitions and all of that type of thing, she would get on this page and she would just be able to, she has a really, what do I want to say? Kind of a sarcastic sense of humor. Um, Very funny, always has been that way. And so she could just get in there and just say whatever she wanted. And it was so cool to see these people, I don't know who these other people are, support her and just allow her the space to unload. And no one was shocked at what she said. And for me to be invited in, it was great because this is what I do. And so I could give her little breadcrumbs of, I recorded a little breathe exercise that I needed to use in one of my email campaigns. And I said, I'll send it to you. So I just sent her that. And she's like, wow, that was, it's like a little 4-minute breathing exercise and just talks a little bit about breathing. And so she was able to use that even when she was sitting at the hospital by his side. Um, and when she puts things, I'm able to give her little breadcrumbs of this is normal. This is okay. And just today, so he died, and they didn't do a funeral, they did a where they all came and just shared. It was a sharing. It was interesting. I've never heard of that for a service, but they all came and they did a sharing. So everybody would share. So informal. And so she thought she was doing really, really well, right? I think I'm really doing well because this was so much, being at the hospice all the time and making sure everything is happening. And then today I see in my Facebook, on my group, I thought I was doing okay, but I'm not. So some people are just sending little, hug heart emojis. And I just was able to say, there's science regarding that.
Mm.
There's a reason for that. Your brain is totally offline and is having a hard time wrapping itself around all of this. And
Yeah.
so that's perfectly normal. And she's just like, thank you so much. And I thought, this is so, she did this intuitively. She created her own little tribe in a way that worked for her with just a few people, knowing that she could be totally supported, say whatever she wants, vent, rant, all those feelings that sometimes we don't say because might be taken wrong or we might be judged. She totally had this space, and then she continues to have this space.
Mm.
So I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was a very cool thing that I know that I will keep in my back pocket for when I'm working with people or they're coming to me and asking, you know, and share it as a story of what seemed to be workable for someone.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And it really seems that when someone is deep in their grief and they don't have that support, that just like there's so many other challenges that come with that, because now you're not just navigating the heaviness of your grief, but not being able to express it in that safe place with people who are not going to judge you or not going to tell you to move on or, like we don't always have safe spaces in our life. People might be there for us, but maybe they are, family members who are also grieving. So they're not necessarily someone that can be of, a proper support for you. Or you might have friends or family that just really want to see you be okay. And they might be doing the whole pressure to get over it kind of a thing and to be happy and to just get back to normal because they don't know what else to do, right? That's just our culture. And I see this so often with people in the grief space, whether it's in, these Facebook groups that we're a part of or whether it's with clients. And when we go through that tribe exercise through the breathe coaching model, that really is like a turning point for people because they feel when they have the right people there, they don't feel alone. They feel like they have that space that they can just word vomit and just unapologetically let it all out. And that safe space for that grief expression is like such a game changer for the healing process. Because otherwise it just gets all stuffed in there and, and then we carry it with us and it just feels so much heavier. So I think that's so cool that this person just intuitively gathered those people that she knew would be that non-judgmental space for her, even over just like a little, group chat or Facebook group. It doesn't have to necessarily be, this huge party of people that gather. It doesn't have to be crazy. It can be so simple if we just find what is going to work for people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what are some of your experiences like working with your clients, like how do they I know that for me, a lot of times people are nervous and asking for help. So can you share some thoughts or examples of where you've seen it really powerful and
Yeah, for sure. A couple clients come to mind, and I feel like I often find myself with clients that are needing a little bit of this like relationship coaching, because they have these challenging relationships where all of a sudden a loss has occurred and the people in their lives don't really know how to support them, right? That's just like so common in the grief space where people don't often know how to show up for others, and then being on the receiving end of that as the griever is so challenging. So I was thinking about a client of mine who also lost her husband, and she was sharing with me this story about how I don't know how long it had been since this had happened. I would say probably close to a year. So she's, feeling a little bit more stable, but still is deep, deep in her grief. And she told a story to me about how she went out to dinner with a group of her closest girlfriends, and they don't always gather together. It's kind of a rare occasion for all of them to get together. And they were sitting around the dinner table, and having experienced the loss of her husband, she was kind of expecting that there would be some conversation or some recognition around that, and nobody brought it up. So she came to our coaching session the next day so upset that how could all of my best friends be here and nobody had the courage to even say anything. And she was so upset and felt extremely unsupported by these people that are supposed to be there for her. And as we unpacked that, I was able to help her gain some awareness around, who would have wanted to be that person at the dinner table in a public space to bring up the death of your husband. Like, nobody wanted to go there. Like, it's not that they didn't want to support you, but I can imagine how, these people in a public space, would not want to bring up this topic because they just don't know, if that's an okay thing to bring up in that space. So as we were unpacking this a little bit, she shifted her perspective and totally could understand from their point of view why maybe nobody brought this up in that space. And we went on to do the tribe exercise, which of course is like, thinking about who are the people in your life that really would be the best to support you. But then more specifically, what are the qualities of each person and how can you lean on those qualities to best support you? Like, what do you really need from your tribe and who's going to be a good fit based on what they're good at? And she recognized that some of the ladies in this group that she was coming to for maybe emotional support or when she just needed to call someone and vent because she was kind of in a panic or just crying and just needed to call someone up, that she was calling the people who were unavailable. She was calling the people that maybe didn't necessarily have that type of emotional care. So as we unpacked who these people were and how they could support her and what she really needed, she realized I've been going to the wrong people for things, and she just kind of adjusted her approach, asked permission from these people. Hey, this is really what I need, and this is what I'm asking of you. And I know one of that was like, let's go for a weekly walk and just talk about all of the grief things, if that's okay with you. She had another person that, we don't talk about the grief stuff, but we just get to hang out and have a sense of normalcy because that's what she's good at.
Mhm.
She had a couple people that she could text, and they were more available and less busy than some of the other people she was trying to reach out to. So through that exercise, even though she felt so unsupported by this group of women, we were able to identify who's actually good at what and how can she clearly communicate what she needs and have that sense of that treaty or that agreement between them to make sure that they're actually going to be able to show up for her in that specific way. And like that was such to see her moving forward in our coaching sessions after that. She had so much more support in between our sessions from all these other people in her life that she was able to get into healthy routines. She was able to go on her walks and get some exercise and some fresh air. She was able to have that safe emotional space for venting from different people who had different perspectives that she really needed to turn to. So I thought that was such an awesome example of literally at the
Yeah.
beginning of the session, she felt like no one was there for her because she felt totally dismissed in her grief. And by the end of that, she felt like, oh my gosh, no, I already have everything that I need. I just need to understand how to best communicate that to them in a way that's going to work for each of us.
And that takes courage. I mean, I know everybody I've ever worked with, and for myself included, I'm probably, it's like I'm the nurse that's the worst, nurse for myself, right? Or the worst patients. But it's so hard to reach out because many of us are taught to be strong and we should be able to have the resilience from this. And this is kind of what's been expected from generations past. And it's like, no, we are pack animals. We really are. I mean, we're meant to be supporting one another. And then that's when people tend to withdraw, is all of a sudden when they have a dinner party like this. And it's like, damn, not one person could even like acknowledge that I'm sitting here, a widow, and have a conversation about it. Okay, I'm not going to go have dinner parties anymore because that's
Yeah.
not going to help me. And thankfully, she had you to say, okay, let's just unwrap that a little bit, and see what's going on here. And I know for myself, and I'm sure you see the same thing, to see that awareness, it's like the light bulb just goes on, like, oh, you're right. Yeah, I had one incident where this woman came to me, and it was like 12 years after her husband had died, but she was in a different phase, and she was starting to, going to be getting into that empty nesting place. But she's like, I think I need some grief coaching. And she's a professional coach. And so we were doing this exercise of finding her people, her tribe. And right away she goes, yep, my mother-in-law. And I said, really? So the mother of her deceased husband. Yep, she's the one because she knows what's going on and and so we can talk about all of these things and we understand it. And I said, okay. So I said kind of the same question. What would you go to her for? So what would you be asking her? What kind of support? And there was like silence. And then she looks at me and she goes, I can't have my mother-in-law. And I said, why not? And she goes, because the things that I need to talk about in my world right now are things that are going on with my kids. Oh my gosh, the last thing I'm going to do is go to my mother-in-law and talk about her grandchildren because that's not going to support me. Oh my gosh, no, that'll make it even more stressful. And that awareness was just like the light bulb went on. And so I said, okay, would you be open to just seeing who else is in your sphere? And she found another person who isn't necessarily the soft, nurturing person. It's someone that is like, okay, let's do this. And she said, she's perfect. And she reached out to her and said, my coach thought it might be good for me to reach out. I always say you can use me as the guide so that you don't have to feel so uncomfortable. And they had this beautiful, supportive relationship that she had someone to go to and work through some of the things that showed up for her.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show grief doesn't go away, folks. Grief doesn't just like end. 12 years. But what had happened most of those 12 years, it was being a single mom and raising this family and and working and trying to do everything that she can. She was so busy. And then all of a sudden, it's my kids are growing up. One is going to college, the other one is like a senior in high school. Now what? And all
Mm,
of that just came down. And she's like, I think I need grief support. So it's never too
yeah.
late. I just want everybody listening here. It's never too late to seek that out because grief doesn't go away. It's there because it's love. Your grieving will change. Your needs are going to change depending on, like, from the time that we're children, and your developmental age to the time that, you're a young adult, or then you become a parent or, you know, a grandparent, or, all of those different phases in our life. Your grief, you may need support at a whole different time that might surprise you. She was surprised, like, whoa, I think I need this now.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because, the grief journey totally evolves. Like it doesn't stop or go away, but it just shifts and changes as we go through life and as we have these new experiences. And I think that's also reflective of like, figuring out what you need through these different phases and who can you rely on for your support. I know in the grief space, we talk with so many people where they're kind of surprised that the people who are like their best friends who have been there for them their whole lives, all of a sudden they go through a loss and they don't show up in some way, and then the people who they least expected to show up for them are the ones coming in and supporting them. So I think like relating with the tribe and how our needs change and how when we have that awareness of like, well, what do we actually need through this season of life, and how can we actually find that support, whether it's through someone that you totally different expect, whether it's through a professional, whether it's through this old high school colleague or a work
Right.
peer that you haven't spoken with for years, like, and how when we do have that courage to like figure that out just a little bit and make the ask and have the ability to receive that, which is a whole nother challenge of being able to allow yourself to like receive that support, how that really does like make such a difference on the journey.
Yep. And I just want to make mention too. So I was introduced to a tool that kind of is a supportive tool for that, and it's called Help Text. And once I met the individual who started that, she started it because people didn't know how to deal with it was like all those friends at the dinner table of your client, right? I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. And so she really thought about it to create this text support, messaging support subscription to help the people who to support the person who's grieving. But then she's expanded it so that it helps with the people that are grieving, or it might be health and wellness, or maybe it's pet loss, whatever, that grief where a person is at, they can choose how they want. And then if you can actually name a couple of people to get support through the help text. So if like the person who's grieving signs up for it, they can name a couple of people, like, I would like this person to get the support text. And I just think, wow, that's just such an amazing in this day and age. I still am getting, I'm on a year subscription, but I'm still getting these, text support things for my health and wellness, and, for the grief with my mom, and they show up at just timely, beautiful things. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Help Text also, and I can put a link in our show notes so that if people want to take a look at that, very inexpensive for a year. It's less than $100 a year, and you get like this weekly support. And that can be really a cool thing for your tribe to offer up, like, would you be willing to sign up for that? This might give you the tools to be a
Mhm.
good tribe member, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, for sure. Because, it gives those gentle nudges of like, hey, like don't forget this anniversary or this important date is coming up, or remember that like holidays are different for grievers. Here are some ways that you might be able to, show your support through this time, or it'll give little tips on like how to be a good grief support person. Like it's very like straightforward, but very gentle. And yeah, you just get a little message on your phone. Like I think I only get them once every like week, every couple weeks or so. So it's not
Yeah.
like you're getting spammed with a bunch of
Right. Right.
messages, but it's just helpful to have that on your mind so that oh yeah, this might be a really challenging time of year for my friend because of XYZ, and you get a little reminder about that. So I really like it so far, having tried it out just for, a little while.
Yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to share that here too. So, but yeah, that was kind of what I wanted to talk about is like if you're listening out here and you are feeling your grief, there are ways to define who your support system can be. And, in the breathe model, we call it about, the tribe, but it really is a tailored support system. There are great support systems like groups and, all of that type of thing. But for you as an individual, our grief is individual, our grief is unique, finding the right people with the right personalities and skill sets and their superpowers that's going to help you because you're the one. So my friend through Facebook, she reached out to the people that she knew that she could lean into, that they would respond to her this private message. And I could see, especially during this time that her husband was dying, yeah, she was sitting at his bedside and he was sleeping more than he was awake. And she could just like pour it out privately versus putting it out on a public site or,
Yeah.
a friend's site. That was pretty
Hmm.
cool. So,
And what a cool like platform as well to have those reflections and that process like in a space where you can kind of go back and watch to see how things changed, or I'm struggling with this thing again. What did my friend say about that last time? That was helpful. Even if you
yeah,
want to revisit that. So it's kind of cool to have a little record of that you can kind of just revisit in your own time. I think that's
it's kind of like a little journal. I never thought
yeah.
about that, but yeah, but it is like a little journal. You can go back and say, oh, I think I mentioned something like that, or what space was I in at that time? Sometimes we just need to go back and process how we were feeling during that time and the thoughts that we're going through. Or, wow, I did feel really good that day. There was actually a day that I felt like I was going to be, oh, then it went down. Oh, okay, okay. And they'll be able to start seeing a pattern too of an unpatterned pattern
Mhm.
because there's no linear, there's no, I mean, it happens, but they can see that this, it's not linear. And
Yeah.
I'm not always going to be on the up trajectory. Sometimes I can take a few steps forward and then go take 3 steps back. And that's
Yeah.
okay. That's normal.
Yeah, to reflect on that process and to see how things have changed, because I think that's another thing in the grief space. It's like I feel stuck, I feel like I'm never getting out of this fog. But if you really do like have that self-awareness to kind of check in with yourself through the journey, and especially if you have it in your journal or in this page or whatever, then you can see how things actually are changing, which I think can be really validating in a lot of ways. Like I'm not just stuck feeling this way forever. Things are
Right.
shifting and changing, and maybe you still feel really crappy, and that's okay. You're still moving through it, you know. But like we said, that journey is going to continue to evolve, and to just have the support that we need along that way makes it a whole lot easier to walk that journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks for the conversation. I hope it's helping all of you out there who's listening to it. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. Thanks, everyone.
You bet. Bye bye.